Policies can be enforced three different ways: synchronously when the action is invoked, deferred to a later time allowing the action to complete immediately, and periodically. The choice of when a rule should be applied and the location where the rule is executed can be modified within a policy. These capabilities are important when operations may take a long time and can be deferred to a later time, or when operations need to be performed where the data are stored, or when an operation should be repeated. The three standard ways to control a policy are automated enforcement through a policy enforcement point rule. Standard examples include the enforcement of a collection property such as integrity and chain of custody. Periodic or delayed enforcement through a queued rule. Standard examples include periodic verification of an assessment criterion. Interactive policies that are initiated by a user or external system. Standard examples include administrative tasks such as migration of files to a new storage system. Rules that are enforced at policy enforcement points are aggregated into a .re file and stored as a system file by the data grid administrator. The default rule base is called core.re. The rule engine reads the rule base, finds the first rule that has a name that corresponds to the policy enforcement point, and tries executing the rule. If the rule fails, the next rule with the name of the policy enforcement point is tried. The process is repeated until either no more rules are found or a rule succeeds. Additional rule bases can be defined to augment the default policies. They are also given the extension .re and are stored in the same system area by the data grid administrator. A configuration file etc/irod/server config.json is modified to include the additional rule bases. An example that uses both the core.re rule base and the dfc functions.re policy base is shown here. Note that the .re extension is not included in the file name in the configuration file. The modification of the configuration file requires administrative access to each IROD server. The default rules for a data grid are controlled by the data grid administrator. Users can execute additional rules interactively or as deferred processes within a rule queue. Deferred or periodic rules can be created and run by anyone. This rule example, shown here, uses the delay microservice to specify the execution of a rule that will be deferred for 1 minute and then executed periodically every 7 days. Note that the input parameters and session variables are captured in workflow variables before the delayed execution. Also note that when a rule is delayed, the output can no longer be written to the laptop screen as the laptop is no longer associated with the session after the rule is submitted. A standard usage model is to encapsulate the operations that will be performed into a rule function that includes the delayed execution. Users can submit a rule to the data grid at any time. The rules can be run interactively or can be deferred for later execution or can even invoke periodic execution. There are multiple clients that can be used to submit an interactive rule. iCommand. Use the irule command to execute a rule. irule-F local rule file.r submits a rule file for execution that is stored on your laptop. irule-F i:/datagrid-rule.r submits a rule file for execution that is stored in the data grid. iDropWeb. Click on a rule file that has been loaded into the data grid. This will bring up a screen where the rule can be edited, executed, and modified. Cloud Browser. Click on a rule file that has been loaded into the data grid. No matter which client is used, the execution and behavior of the rule will be the same. Before a rule is included in the core.re file or executed periodically, the rule should be tested by running the rule interactively. This identifies problems with input parameters, rule syntax, expected rule behavior, and the output results. The IROD's rule language implements recovery procedures that can be automatically applied if the execution of a rule encounters a problem. Whenever an error is encountered, the system returns an error code. The error code can be trapped, and the rule creator can implement code to manage the error. The code writer can also use recovery microservices to gracefully back out of an error that is encountered. The recovery procedure is specified as a microservice that is invoked when the original microservice fails. The syntax for specifying a recovery procedure is to add 3 colons after the microservice invocation and then list the recovery microservice on the workflow line. The rule engine will apply the recovery microservice, then iterate back through the procedure applying each recovery microservice that has been specified back to the start of the file. This enables the data grid middleware to gracefully exit when errors occur, undoing all the operations that were performed within the policy. This can be used to ensure consistent state information in the presence of errors. Take 7 minutes to complete exercise 27. Decide which is more important: rules enforced at policy enforcement points, such as automated policy enforcement for replication, or delayed rule execution, such as periodic verification of integrity. Please load a paragraph describing your conclusions into the lifetime library in the sub-collection class INLS 624 by the end of today's class.